fact-checking era that we've kind of entered. Like, and I found that to be a really fascinating conversation because, and it was mostly geared towards, this wasn't like a executive office thing. This was more of like a, meta starts off with a, with a meta backbone and then what works its way down through, through everything else, whether it's, Twitter, just a variety of different.
The community notes, where no one checks anything, but the fact checking mechanism is the
fact checking mechanism is the community, like on Twitter. Is that work? It doesn't work? But then where's the obligation to fact checking? Is there an obligation to fact checking? And then where do we draw the line with various social media platforms, the streaming platforms? I think
that ship has sailed. I mean, the only two places that I can think of where facts exist anymore is in financial reports and sports scores. You can't claim the Knicks won when the Knicks lost, and you can't claim Tesla sold cars when they didn't. But if it's not a financial report and it's not a sports score, you can literally say anything you want. And I think that's I believe that ship has sailed. I mean, you could try to reinstitute it with the section, whatever, I forget the name of the law. It's like section 259 or something. There's some.
No. I'm not even referring to reinstituting it. I agree with you. That ship has sailed. That ship has sailed, and for whatever reason, I think a lot of it is, a lot of it started on a political level, but that ship has sailed. The question is, what does it mean? Like, how is that going to impact our lives going forward? And how much does that mean when it comes to when we start to talk about the integrity of different platforms, of different markets, of market structure, of everything else that we do? At what point, there needs to be, I come from in the world of finance, I come from a world where everything that we did in the open outcry world was all basically an honor system. As soon as one person didn't honor their trades out of hundreds of thousands and millions of trades, then the whole system falls apart. It can't be that much different for every other work and business environment, and it can't be that healthy culturally if facts don't matter. And so,
I think that what's okay. I'll let you finish your thought.
Well, no. So all I'm saying is that if we don't check it, if we don't stop it early on, okay, there will be no stopping it. There'll be no way to stop it. You can't have a community oversee everything. It just doesn't. It doesn't work that way. And so then at what point, how does that impact business? It just can't be that way. How does it impact business? How does it impact everything we say? How does it impact how we promise? How does it impact what we teach? And that's what's the scary part. I'm not suggesting, we're already there. Now what?
And so now I would say that first, the things that are still reside in the world of fact become more valuable because facts are harder to come by in general. And so whether they're financial agreements or whether they are employment agreements or whether they are athletic results, they take on more value. Obviously, the political domain is the one that is the most vulnerable to a factless universe because leadership emerges without any factual basis of any kind. Like I can't, like I said, I can't become the captain of the Chicago Bears by telling you that I'm the greatest quarterback ever. Like I actually have to go play quarterback in the NFL and be better than other quarterbacks as a matter of fact. But I can spin up a colossus of lies about my qualifications in social media and become the next president of the United States without any foundation in anything that happens. So the short answer is the risk is entirely political, that the biggest risk is political. The value is in financial and athletic, insofar as it's seen as more trustworthy, and that the ultimate result is that the cost of building new relationships and creating new agreements and new partnerships goes up, and the value of historical partnerships and historical relationships also goes up. Because if you have someone that you know that you have as a vendor or a business partner or an investor or whatever from the past, that becomes a very valuable, because you don't have to deal with a new person who lives in the world without facts. And if you want to move into a new relationship, new agreement, new vendor, new reality, that the cost of the due diligence done correctly has gone up substantially. You know, it used to be that the keeper of facts and information was a combination of the large newspapers, the large news organizations, shall we say, and parts of the government agencies, the government data, like the government, the Treasury Department or whoever issues the data. Basically, the news industry has lost all credibility for fact, which has been a function of its own doing and a function of, I believe, an organized effort to diminish it, the perceived reliability of it. Because I believe it has political benefits to those who have diminished the credibility of the government and the news organizations, is it allows them to acquire more power without being held accountable. The beautiful thing about a no-fact world is there's no accountability, because even if whatever you may have said or not, and so that in a world without accountability, fraud and corruption go up, and the cost of new relationships is higher. But also the value of existing things that have integrity, whether it's relationships or business relationships or anything else, also is much higher.
I don't disagree with any of that, but I think that the fraud piece goes much further. It goes into, worlds where if you combine the absence of facts with the absence of regulation, in a world we're clearly downsizing regulation on so many different levels. So if you lose the facts and you lose the regulation, then who's to stop the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world? So it does.
No one.
I understand. So it's not just politics. It gets into things like business, where you start to explain, I thought this was my money. I'm simplifying it, but it goes, it's much deeper, it's much more extensive than simply just talking about politics, because the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world, in a world of no regulation or much less regulation or downsizing regulation, combined with the absence of facts, or alternative facts, you end up with it becomes, I'm not sure how, as a consumer, who to believe or what to believe. And so it does become challenging in that sense. You are susceptible.
Which is more similar to Russia or Italy, where you only do business with the people that are in your family, because people outside of your family can't be trusted.
Okay, so now you're getting to the crux of what I wanted to start with. If we go in the direction of Italy, and we go in the direction of Russia, there's a reason why those economies have no value. There's a reason why those economies are dead. I mean, Russia more so than Italy, but there's a reason.
No, it's a progression. It's a progression.
And there's a reason why.
Extreme.
There's a reason why all over the world, including many of the corrupt political systems in Africa, including many of the corrupt political systems in Asia and South America, they don't have the monetary structure, the financial infrastructure that we have, and the giant pool of liquidity. What we're doing right now, in the absence of fact checking, is, and this was my whole kind of the reason for bringing up this topic, was we are putting at risk way more than our political system. We are putting at risk a lot of stuff that we built up, a lot of the goodwill, not just, actually, it's not even just goodwill. It's goodwill and it's strong, a fundamental foundation of the structures that we've put in place that make this country so valuable. That's the dangerous thing. And then, when you get, there's another side to it too. There's also the massive concentration of wealth, which you're able to accelerate, but the absence of fact checking allows the wealthiest few to actually accelerate their growth, their own net worth at a pace that they can't do in the world of fact checking. So because it gives them a lot more velocity to the way that they acquire wealth. So what you're doing essentially is you're taking the wealthiest people in the world and you're giving them almost a free pass. And at the same time, you're essentially like eating away at the foundation of everything that we've built for so long. That's the problem with fact checking. It's not some idiot politician makes it to become a congressperson or a congresswoman, or a senator or whatever it is. That's a little tiny piece of it, or even the presidency. But it's the fact that it starts at the top and it works its way down and it filters through all the different business cycles, and you do end up in a situation where nobody can trust anybody because of the rampant fraud. And then you end up like Russia, you end up like Italy or any other country like that. I'm not just picking on Italy, but anybody. And that is the problem. It's not just isolated to the president. He might start things, but it's not isolated to him. It's everybody.
No, it means that the culture of every business transaction between strangers is now either not viable or really expensive to consummate because of the underlying lack of trust that anything that you mean that you will do or say, anything you say means anything.
Everything moves to cash. It's a disaster. It's the
do
whole.
You really own that building? Are you really qualified?
The whole thing.
I don't know.
What drives America, and what drives our economy is the fact that we've built this market structure that works around very efficient pricing and very effective leveraging. And as soon as the trust goes away, there's no efficient pricing, there's no leverage. And then you just become essentially a cash-based society where, it's everything is peer-to-peer, everything is, nothing is centralized. Everything goes peer-to-peer. Everything is just done for cash. That's the way it works in places like Germany, places like Italy, just countries like that, and lots of places. Just because there is nothing centralized to make sure it all works.
I don't trust you is the underlying principle of all transactions.
Yes,
and you cannot be trusted. And so I agree with everything that you're saying, and that basically that's a huge sort of economic regression or move into the past, but for the following. The future, if you believe in the decentralized blockchain, Bitcoin super world, is the future and the past come back together, where everything goes from peer-to-peer cash-based. If you're married to my cousin, I can trust you. If you're not part of my family, I can't do business with you. From the past or from these non-American environments, to a future world that the collapse of all trust forces the blockchain adoption mechanism faster and the blockchain adoption and implementation becomes more rapidly accomplished because of the absence of all fact. Otherwise, it would be the silver lining version of this, which is it's a stretch to call it a silver lining, but it's catastrophic. I mean, for my generation, for your generation, for whatever 2 or 3 generations of Americans, to forfeit the integrity and trustworthiness of the American culture and information marketplace, where it used to be if someone says they're selling a car, I believe that Tom is selling his car. I don't think to myself, is Tom really selling his car?
It's catastrophic to my generation because we've never had to deal with this before. It's probably catastrophic to to your generation, because you never had to deal with this before.
It's adjacent.
But
Exactly.
there are younger generations that have never known anything different, so it seems normal to them, and hence the reason why a community, essentially community fact checking, or seems more normal. But what's not understood is that life is not a social media platform. You're not going to, YouTube is not going to run the world. YouTube's not going to run the world. Twitch is not going to run the world. I mean, talk about streaming platforms. It's YouTube, Twitch, and then everybody else. And then, these platforms are, Facebook or whatever you want to say, some fits somewhere in there. There's another social media platform, or Twitter and everything else. That's not how you want the world to run. I don't like that. I mean, I don't think anybody does.
No, well, not only that, but I mean, it's like, if you consider growth, the reason Wall Street was invented in the first place was to allow people with money to invest in other people's ideas to create, these companies to do things, right? It was a way for third-party money. And so think about what a chilling effect third-party investment takes on in a world where lying is the default location for all information exchange. Lying is seen as like the standard business practice.
I mean, part of it's lying, part of it's the anonymity of it all. So you can create information, news, rumors, whatever, by being completely anonymous. And so there's a lot of risk in that regard. Now, here's the thing: none of that's going to change anytime soon. So what we have to be careful about is that we at least understand it and we bring it out so that it's a discussion topic, so that there's two-sided, there's two-sided chatter, there's discourse, that at least it's on the table so people understand the risks. So it's not like, oh, I didn't even realize this was a risk. Like I think it needs to be out there, because one of the areas that politicians are most ineffective in is understanding how markets work and how capital's raised and all that kind of stuff. The whole financial system is something that most of finance is truly illiterate. Most of politics is truly illiterate about. And so we have to be careful that all these correlated risks don't end up coming back to bite us in the ass, because it's not just a one-dimensional topic. That's, I guess, what I want to say. None of this
the financial markets are affected right now by the cultural migration to a world of factlessness.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, it's probably the biggest drawdown right now is the fact that since we've gotten away from facts, people are just making up whatever they want to make up about the current economic situation. Oh, tariffs are good. Oh, tariffs are bad. Oh, tariffs are going to be okay. Tariffs will have no long-term negative effect. Tariffs will have a huge long-term, everything's just made up. And it just starts with that, but it's 1,000 other topics. And that's just on,
Right. But if everything is made up, does that basically just means that the multiple on all stocks is less?
Well, it just means that you take stocks lower in an effort to take some of the risk off the table. And that's essentially what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So by taking, the market sold off, let's just say, I don't know, let's say it sold off 10%. It probably is not quite 10%. But let's just say the market sold off 10%. So what you're doing when the market sells off 10% is you're taking a significant amount of risk premium off the table. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So the market's making an adjustment for everything that's going on. And the market has to determine what is a reasonable adjustment. I mean, ultimately, it will come back to some kind of, foundational number, and they'll figure out, some multiple of this and that, earnings and everything else. But the reality in the short term is it's all emotional. So the market just makes these emotional adjustments to what they see going on, which they think is a discount for whatever kind of, for however you have to degrade based on integrity. So you're basically degrading integrity, and then you're making a marketplace adjustment, and you're factoring in.
Do you think that fraud? Do you think incidents of fraud go up in a world where
100%
less integrity?
100%.
Even smaller incidences where it's like just like the broken windows theory in reverse.
Yeah,
it's one thing for.
Yeah, you're always going to have the Bernie Madoff criminals out there because that's something that you're cooking the books or something like that. But so I think Bernie Madoff is kind of like one situation, but then the Sam Bankman-Fried thing and some of the crypto exchanges is a whole nother thing, because that was more fraud of disinformation. That was eyes wide open, and they did it in broad daylight, and that's a different situation. Bernie Madoff didn't go down kicking and screaming saying I didn't do anything wrong. He's like, crap, I got caught. Sam Bankman-Fried said, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. Basically all the way to the end, I did nothing wrong. Everybody made money, blah, blah, blah. I sold $10 billion, but I didn't do anything wrong. And that's the difference. That's the alternative facts.
And is that because you think there's like is this a psychological phenomenon do you think that's like where people actually start to believe? Like Bernie Madoff, to your point, when it came down to it, knew what he did was morally wrong and legally criminal. He turned him. That's why he's like, he turned himself in. He didn't. He pled. He was very clear about the fact that he was self-aware enough to understand that what he'd done the previous 3 decades was legally not allowed.
Yeah, of course,
and was morally not looked well upon by society. You get the sense that whether it's some of the Trump things or whether it's this Sam Bankman-Fried things, or even what's her name, the biotech girl, the fake blood test girl, that they've actually are so deep in whatever their mental condition is.
This past weekend, I wrote about the fact that all the goodwill that we've worked up has gone, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. One of the real challenges for us as a nation is, and this is the area that this all leads into, is one of the things that makes America really special is that we're very trusting people. And one of the reasons that our economy grows the way it does is because we believe in other people, where the rest of the world doesn't necessarily think like that, but we do. So we're willing to make a deal. It's the whole concept of a handshake, right? It's a trust.
And my predisposition is that I trust you until you prove to me I can't trust you.
That's right.
As opposed to I don't trust you until you prove to me I can trust you.
That's exactly right. But the reason that we have the kind of growth that we have is because people, we are trusting. Our society is one of trust. We built this country, and we grow on the concept of trust. Once that goes, that's the engine. That's the backbone, is trust. Once there's no more trust because you can't believe the facts or what anybody's saying, then everything is, nothing goes punished, nobody gets in trouble, there's no regulations, whatever it is, then we have problems. That's what I'm nervous about. That's what makes me most nervous. On the one hand, I don't like destroying, a century of goodwill. But on the other hand, this trust thing, this is something that, let's not discount this. Let's not say that this is all bullshit or, this doesn't matter, because it matters. We built all our businesses on trust. The trust between this company and our customers, the trust between this company and you and everybody else. Everything's based on trust.
And if I want to refund something that I buy a handbag, I can get a refund for that handbag, whatever. Like there's just basic expectations of an experience that is rapidly declining from everybody's availability. I think it's reason to reduce growth expectations to take it back to the. And I think that the market is right to be lower.
Hence, the market is lower. I mean, that's what it is. And I think that's something that nobody factored in when we changed administrations, is that, granted, I know a lot of people didn't like Joe Biden and whatever, thought he was, senile and wasn't even there anymore and all this stuff. But there was never a trust factor. The challenge we have now is a trust factor. And the question is, how much is the market going to discount on that level of trust? That's really all it comes down to. At what point do you say, okay, now here it's worth the risk? And maybe we're there. Maybe it was a 10% haircut.
I don't know, because I feel like counterparty integrity. It's one thing for me to price inflation or probable or employment or all the things that sort of normally get priced on a micro or macroeconomic basis. But when I'm pricing counterparty integrity risk,
but you'll never do it. You don't do it. I don't do it. The market as a whole does it. So it's everybody together. It's the totality of all that money.
But I'm saying when the market is pricing counterparty integrity, that's the crash of '87. Yeah. That's 2000. Like all that is counterparty integrity at the end of the day.
Yeah. So
whether it's '87, whether it's '08.
Yeah, totally. And the best example we have recently is China. When the Chinese government essentially decided to wage a very similar war, how much equity did they take out of their, of their markets and
at least half, right?
Pretty close, maybe even more in some cases, And that's not just the stock market. That's the real estate markets. That's everything. They almost cut everything in half. Now they realized, oh, this was a huge mistake. Trust and integrity is way more valuable. They realized trust and integrity. That's why they say now, oh, we're going to focus on growth again. And because in order to grow, you have to have trust, integrity, everything else. So now everything matters again because they recognize it. But it took them 4 or 5 years. I hope we don't make that same mistake and we don't give up 50%. And I hope that this is like markets go, okay, we gave you your 10% because we're not China. And maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 15%. I don't know. Maybe we're done. Who knows? But the point is, there is a value to what we're talking about.
Massive. I think it's the most significant. It's like it's an order of magnitude different than every other variable.
Yeah, because we haven't had to. This is a new variable. We haven't had to deal with this. Like we were able to, a pandemic type thing was weird because nobody really understood it. We didn't know the how long it would last. We didn't understand the duration, things like that. But we figured it out relatively quick. I think we'll figure this out relatively quick because things happen, at breakneck speed now. But it's real.
I mean, I think that the question that you have to ask is, the question I've been asking myself is there a point at which the Republican leadership in the Congress, I have no expectation of truth or integrity from the president. His brand name is lies and betrayal. Like that is his basic, that's his marketing slogan. Very openly brazen lies and betrayal is like his organizational principle. And which leaves only the Republican Congress as a brake pedal on that culture. And I sort of like how far does the stock market, how screwed up do the markets have to get before there's more than Thomas Massey in the Congress objecting to the president's agenda and or culture?
I mean, most of the time, at some point, personal greed will when you realize that it's backfiring, you'll usually, everything is cyclical. So at first you get full of the power, but then you realize that, that certain things matter. And I'm not too concerned that long term that's a real risk. I'm just not, because our society is one that does a really good job of self-policing. We're a little different than other places, and it is very hard in our world. It is very hard. This is as long as we have free speech and as long as the democracy is intact. But we are able to self-police, and it is very difficult for a single person or ideology to damage our democracy or the way we do business or the way we go through life. So I'm not actually that long-term worried at all.
Does that affect last week when we talked about the market, you said, listen, the only thing I'm really doing is looking to sell some vol and enjoy the ride. Are you in the same basic place relative to all this, or do you have a point of view? Same thing. You have no. You're not buying a dip. You're not long a sell-off. You're not directional. You're just opportunistic on expanded volatility and sort of.
Yeah, that's fair. That's where I'm at right now. And
reversal of fortune in Tesla. Can I get you into a Tesla put spread? Collect some vol and set a floor, and get interested in a little White House. They're selling Teslas from the front of the White House, brother. They got a White House special.
My biggest position right now is in Tesla, but it's not necessarily directional. It's just my biggest position. I sold a lot of premium, but I didn't want to talk about markets that much. But I mean,
I know
we're on the same page.
All right.
Yeah. No.
Do you think that there's a level of self-awareness in the White House and in Musk's executive office and in Trump's executive office? Do you think there's any self-awareness even of the risks that are being taken, or do you think that the egotism and sort of self-congratulation is so overwhelming that they're oblivious to the risk of compromised integrity?
I don't. No, I do not think they're oblivious to the risk. I think that Elon specifically, I think Elon specifically knows that he basically half his stock value was wiped out in 2 weeks. I think that when you think about Trump, and I think it's a little different because he's not as tied to stock value as as Elon is. But when you think about even his own media company, the stock's down almost 40%. So I think that when Trump was elected, his stock was $35. His stock is $20 right now. I'm sure it doesn't matter because in his world, he's got plenty of money. This is not an issue this doesn't change his life one bit, but the stock has dropped 40%. I do think that regardless of who you are, your stock price does impact. Your stock price has a very profound impact on you emotionally and personally, and you don't want to take people down. You don't want to take investors down. You don't want to take friends down. You don't want to take your family down. And I think that it is very personal. And I do think that those guys feel the pain, and so it's impossible for them to be oblivious to what's happened here. Impossible.
Do you think it creates a change? Because I've been saying this with Chris and Ilya on Overtime, that there's an opportunity here for an extremely coherent economic statement to be made that is, but be like the equivalent of like the J.D. Vance speech at the Munich Defense Security Conference, where it's like, America no longer is an ally of Europe. America now is an ally of Russia. and deal with it. And I was like, okay. And the Germans are like, we're going to raise $1 trillion and we'll build an army. And everybody wants to make all their nuclear weapons now in France and Germany. And they can plan. Europe can plan that America is no longer an ally, and it's a reliable piece of information. The bond market can fund it.
It's incredibly.
I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it's reliable. And whereas, like right now, the economic policy relative to trade, like I just feel like there's an opportunity for Lutnick and Bessent, I guess his name is, the Treasury Secretary, along with obviously the president, to say this is the American economic policy.
I mean, you're relying on two people that have the social awareness, of an ant in Lutnick and the other guy. I mean, it's actually scary how both those guys scare me. But listen, I don't, there's nothing I can do.
In other words, you're not holding your breath.
No, they're not.
For more coherent rhetoric.
They weren't hired because they're going to roll over and no, they're not. They're not going to say what you think they're going to say. I don't.
So you think the correction comes in terms of the risk to integrity through a reduction of the momentum of the current executive team? Not meaning that there's probably two ways. One, the current executive team either gets slowed down somehow.
Everybody gets humbled.
Or they change their behavior.
Everybody gets humbled. So they either change their behavior or they will slow down. I mean, it's one or the other. I don't know which one, but everybody gets humbled. There's no, from Tiger Woods to Michael Jordan to Muhammad Ali, whatever you want to talk about, to every major company, everybody gets humbled. It's not, that's what life is. There's some cyclicality to everything. And at some point, everybody gets humbled. Everything gets humbled. Everybody gets humbled. So it'll happen. It's not, and
it's your point, in which I agree with, which is my point, which is what I've been carrying on about it myself, which is it's a new thing for the leadership of America to play fast and loose with integrity and trust. It's one thing to play with policy or even with war. It's another thing to compromise the very reliability of America as a counterparty, particularly when America is the most important counterparty on earth.
Exactly. It's never been done before. This is the first time. So that's the scary part. I am Tom Sosnoff. He is Dylan Radigan. Dylan, fun discussion today. Heavy, but fun.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, man. Talk to you soon.
We'll see you later. All right. See you in a bit.